Hi, welcome to Dreaming of Chess Mastery. I'm Neil Priest, and this is my YouTube channel where I delve into the world of adult chess improvement. If you're one of my regular viewers, perhaps even a subscriber, you'll be familiar with the fact that my recent videos have been filmed in my garden, a splendid garden here in the northeast of Brazil. But I do often mention that I'm a sculptor, so I thought, given the content of the next few videos, I'm going to be sharing some books from my library with you, perhaps it would be a good moment to film in my art gallery at my house. As I say, I am a sculptor by profession, and behind me is my reworking of Damien Hirst's classic pickled shark, life-size, painted galvanized wire. Anyway, you're not here for art, you're here for chess. And in the last video, I was making a big pitch that what we need to do is focus, drill down into one well-chosen book with rich material. And when I say drill down, I don't mean spend a few hours reading it, I mean study it, dissect it, pull it apart, cover to cover, for days, weeks, months, perhaps even the whole year. Depends on the content, obviously. But there is much to be gained from really going deep into a book rather than reading lots of books superficially. Anyway, if you missed that, check it out on the channel. And that film I introduced, talking about my friend Robert, who made enormous gains after reading Nimzovich's My System. And I thought it would be interesting to share, rather than just speak abstractly about the value of studying books, to actually share some from my library. Now, these days, most of the books that I buy are in electronic form, Kindle, Forward Chess, Chessable courses. And also when I moved decades ago from the UK to South America, financial necessity forced me, and also packing space, to sell most of my books. But I still have a small but well-stocked library, and certainly enough books to illustrate my point. So here goes. Well, first up is, yes, it's my copy of My System, the Bell publication, and it's still a valid book. Why? Well, it's all-encompassing. When he says My System, well, people dispute whether it is actually a system at all. It's not a recipe of solutions for any position, but it does cover the broad sweep of ideas that are present in chess positional and strategic thinking. And I think that sort of book is of great value. We all need at some point in our chess journey to read at least one of them. Something that gives us a 360 sort of overview of what's on the table in terms of decision-making options. There are modern versions, or I say versions, sort of revisitings of My System. One is, of course, a repackaging of the original book by Alex Fishbein that I mentioned in the previous video. Another is John Watson's book on chess strategy, books on chess strategy, where he sort of revisits My System in the light of developments in chess thinking of the last 50 years. I've read it, it was in our school library when I was in Sao Paulo, but I don't have a copy. I do, however, have a copy of an interesting book, Raymond Keene's Aaron Nimzovich, A Reappraisal. I bought this after I miraculously tied first in the South African Correspondence Championships. And I have to say that year, the reason I tied first is all the serious heavy hitters simply withdrew from the tournament. And there were a few people left. And between the withdrawals, the timeouts, and so forth, somehow I managed to win. A miracle, really. And I celebrated buying that book, well, putting my prize sticker in the front cover. But it is a very good book. And Raymond Keane is a much maligned author. There's, I think, fair reasons to criticize him. And he has produced a lot of paint-by-numbers, shoddy sorts of books. But this one was a labour of love. And if you're familiar with Raymond Keane's chess, you'll know that it drew heavily, I guess, on Nimzovich's principles. And it is a very, very good book. So that might be a place to go. But if you're in the more sort of typical adult chess improver profile, let's imagine you're a club player, you're somewhere between 1,500 and 1,800 on some sort of rating system, maybe 2,000, 15 to 2,000. And I'm not specifying FIDE-chess.com, your national rating. But if you're a decent enough club player, you've been playing for a long time, you're fairly experienced, you know something about tactics and positional ideas and so forth, but you really want to up your game, there is, I think, an obvious book to choose, and it's this: Chess Strategy for Club Players. The Road to Positional Advantage, I think that's what it's called, yes, by Herman Gruiten, I think that's probably the right way to pronounce it. A Dutch international master, but he's principally a chess coach, and a very good chess coach. He's written a lot of exceptional books. And this, I have to tell you, and I'm not the only one saying this, it is universally praised. It is a terrific book, packed full of well-chosen examples, most of which you won't be familiar with. And it is structured around the positional thinking of the chess predecessor, I suppose, to Nimzovich, and that is Steinitz. Steinitz had I don't think it was published in one book, they were more articles, but he had what he called the elements, and they were the core of positional play. And this book has 22 chapters, but 16 of them are specifically titled according to Steinitz's elements, as I say, full of really well-explained, well-written, insightful examples. And at the end of each of those 16 chapters, he gives you 4 positions to think about, sort of puzzles, but they're more the kind of position that your coach would give you in a good lesson, and that you would be expected to spend some time thinking, annotating, and then discuss with your coach. And I think, as I say, 16 chapters, 4 exercises, I mean, right there, you're going to spend probably 20 hours plus just doing the exercises. If you spent 2 hours a day, 5 days a week, this book will give you more than a month of material, probably a couple of months. And at the end of it, I think you would have upped your game considerably. And why am I suggesting in this video that these sorts of books are perhaps the first port of call for the serious adult chess improver who wants to level up by a deep dive into a book? Well, I think the principal reason is that for most of us club players, we're pretty good in some areas and very weak in others. And taking a book that basically looks at everything is a good way of filling in the gaps, so to speak, that might exist, the glaring omissions, for whatever reason, in your chess learning. That's the value of the Yusupov course, the 9 books that I mentioned before in my last video. You know, if you read those 9 books, and it will probably take you a good 5 years, you will cover pretty much everything. I'm sure there are things gaps and things that you'll miss out on, but they're small, and you can pinpoint them and work on them later. But I think what we all need is this sort of what every Russian schoolboy knows kind of approach. I mean, there's books. Sakayev and Lander's 2-volume book on the middle game, or Alexander Panchenko's book on the middle game, which is comprehensive. I have that in forward chess, but not a physical copy. And that's probably aimed at a sort of a post-2011. But this one, Hermann Gruetten, I think would be the perfect place to start for the typical club player. And I think even if you're quite a strong club player, you fall into that advanced category, it's still worth your while. But when you've worked through Gruetten and you are, you are more in the sort of expert rather than the advanced category, you're 2,000 plus FIDE, then this is the book, and it's one of a series of 3 that I would recommend. Helston. Now, my copy's in Portuguese. I found it in a second-hand bookshop here, miraculously. But subsequently, although I've been reading it in Portuguese, I went for the Chessable course, and it really does lend itself to Chessable as a platform. And I'm going to do a little plug. If you are in that sort of advanced category, let's say 1800 FIDE onwards, the 3 strategy courses that Helston offers on Chessable, opening, middle game, and end game strategy courses. They're available in forward chess. They're available in, a physical copy, and they're on Chessable. The Chessable is really worth it. I mean, I'm not sure whether you need to buy the expensive full video version. I couldn't afford it. But why? Why do I so strongly recommend Helston? Well, in the forum, as you're working through his course, and I started with the endgame course, it took me more than a year. Every time I ran into a problem, I just couldn't understand his solution. On Chessable, you have engine access. I couldn't quite understand why he chose something instead of something else. I pose a question, and he will give you a detailed reply, a good quality reply, thoughtful, insightful, in less than 24 hours. And this is one of the best coaches in the world. What can I say? This is the place for you to go when you've worked through maybe the Yusupov Orange books. You've worked through Gruetten. And if you spend 3 or 4 years working through Helston's strategy courses, you will be, I guarantee it, a much, much stronger player. Now, is there a possibility that some of the material is very challenging? That perhaps sometimes he assumes that you understand something which you don't? Well, there is that possibility, and in answer to the strong coaches, for example, Andras Toth, who raised this as a warning, perhaps a caveat. Look, that's true with a chess coach. If you don't realise you don't understand something, you don't ask the question, your coach doesn't give you the answer. I mean, this is always a problem in learning, and eventually there'll be misconceptions and they will be exposed later on, and you'll sort them out when they arise. But the book itself is full, chock full of hundreds of examples and 300 exercises for you to do. Bang for your buck. As I say, whether you're working with a physical copy or the Chessable course, the middle game strategy, or if you want end games, the end game strategy, or if you feel you're not playing your openings well, rather than doing an opening course, the opening strategy book, these books will, I guarantee, if you study them in that sort of deep dive way, really pick them apart, test your understanding, you will be a class above when you finish the process. You will have raised your rating, your playing strength, 100, 200 points. If you do the whole series of 3, 200 points, I don't have a doubt of that. But be warned, this is years of material. Now, when people talk about these kind of exercise-related books, there are 2 names that spring up very frequently. One is Jacob Aagaard. No one gets his name right. It's Danish. My apologies. And he has his wonderfully titled 6 books, Grandmaster Preparation Series. And amateur enthusiasts merrily go out and buy them. And my friends, it's called Grandmaster Preparation for a reason. It's aimed at people preparing to become Grandmasters. It's aimed at 2,200 plus FIDE strength players. If you're not a master, don't buy calculation, Grandmaster Preparation calculation. That's my solid opinion. It's also Jacob's. He suggests, buy my book, Excelling at Chess Calculation. It's aimed a level below, and it's difficult. I have an electronic copy of that. It's not an easy book. If you are below 2,200, there's 100 problems, loads of examples, and it is challenging. Go for that one. And the same can be said for the Dvoretsky books. I actually have one. Here it is, Attack and Defense, and I've read it. I say read advisedly. I have not studied this book because it was very clear to me. I'm reading it, lovely read, very well written, very accessible, very interesting ideas. But I looked at the examples. I'm not ready for them yet. One day I'll be ready to really study this book. Not yet. So back to shelf for you, Mr. Dvoretsky. So that's it. I would recommend, if you're a club strength player, 1,500 plus, Hermann Grutten strategy for the club player. When you've done that, move on to Helston, and you do those 2 books and you will be a better chess player. What about if you're sort of a level below that? Perhaps you might look at Yasser Seirawan's series, highly recommended, very, very good quality material, and probably a level below the Grutten book. That's it for this week. If I've missed something, if you disagree vehemently, or if you just want to provide some moral support and encouragement, I'd love to hear from you, and I'll do my best to reply to all the comments. So that's it. More book recommendations, ideas, reviews, what have you from my library following shortly. And until then, for sunny Brazil, well, my art gallery, ciao.